Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Last Life Ever podcast. I'm Jillian Sidoti, and this is my partner, Jeffrey Holst. Jeff, who are we interviewing today?
Today we are bringing Dave McIntyre back. Dave is the winner of season 2 of Alone. We previously interviewed him about that. Today we are going to talk to him about writing not one, but 6 novels all at the same time.
6 novels. That's
incredible.
A
whole series of 6 novels. And then he told us he had spin-offs and all kinds of other stuff. We, in full disclosure, recorded this episode previously because we actually just did it at the same time we had him on last time.
Help me, my brother, can you lend me a hand as I walk through this land of confusion? If we give to each other, then there's nothing to take. Let's live life for the moment before it slips away.
Your whole life isn't just, Alone. You do other stuff, right? Besides Alone. Like I read on your website that you are a novelist. That's pretty cool. What can you tell us about that?
I've got a post-apocalyptic fiction series where the basic premise of the apocalypse. I wrote it because I love the zombie apocalypse genre, but I hate zombies. They're not scary to me. All right. It's like the rotting corpses staggering around. It's like, okay, in every zombie story, it's like the zombies become part of the weather. It's hot, dusty with staggering corpses. There's no moral component to it. They just run through, bang, 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 shoot them all in the head, and it never affects them. And I thought, what if I wrote a story which cuts as close to the line of reality as possible for the zombie genre, where they're not actually dead, but they're just psychotic, and shooting them is just not the option you think it is. And there's a serious twist in there, but basically a virus wipes out 90% of the Earth's population. The 10% that survive it naturally come back and they're psychotic. They will just attack you on sight, and they throw things, they pick things up and swing them at you, and they're very scary and aggressive. And my main character wakes up and he's in his right mind and can't figure out why he's different. And he hooks up with another main character, and the two of them, obviously, she's a woman, he's a man, and it's got some romantic aspects to it, but basically everybody's stripped down. And what I like about the story is, he's like a hardcore constitutional individual. I wouldn't say Republican, but he's definitely a conservative, and she is a hardcore East Coast liberal. But all the hubris is stripped away, so they're left with their core values. Okay, so Holly is compassionate, and she's empathetic, and she cares about people, and she has a collectivist kind of mindset. And Nick is like the rugged individual. He's to pull you up by your bootstraps, work hard, individual risk and reward kind of thing. And the two of them start to see in each other that, you've got a point, that we can't just do this or that, and I get to explore a lot of those ideas and strip away all the things that we're screaming about at each other now in modern society. People on the right have to realize that the people on the left have some seriously good ideas, and vice versa. And if you don't have that free marketplace of idea open, people do stupid things. And
well, hopefully we don't get a virus quite as terrible as the one that's in yours. And maybe we'll learn a lesson or two from the coronavirus, and we won't end up hating each other. Although it doesn't seem like we're going that direction, does it?
Yeah, people just need to realize that. But one of the basic premises of my story is that people are not disposable. People are not you don't just discard human beings. They're all valuable, and they all have a contribution. And when we work together, you have to recognize the individual, and you also have to recognize the collective. That I hate to see all the screaming that people are doing right now. No one's listening to each other, and that's a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah, no, I think I mean, I'm not to speak for Jillian, but I'm pretty sure she agrees with it. So
I don't even pay attention anymore. I've just kind of I can only focus on what I can change, like the way I view things. And that's kind of, part of the reason why we do this program is I can only concentrate on what I can effectuate and I can change. And screaming on the internet is not worth the time you put into screaming on the internet. And I've definitely had my fair share of arguments with people on the internet. I won't deny it. But
I always type those long ranting comments and then hit delete.
Oh, I do all the time. Yeah,
I'm just constantly typing out a response and then going, no, nothing good will come from this. Because the thing is, Dave, if we agree or disagree on something, like if we're having a conversation in person, we can kind of hash some of that stuff out. I think that's kind of what you're saying in your story. But if we try to have that on the internet or over the cable news networks, nothing ever happens. We just yell at each other, or worse yet, we just rant and rave ourselves and yell at sort of the ethos or whatever, and no one's even listening to us.
Right, everyone's in their own little echo chamber, and we filter what comes in, and we only express ourselves in our little circles and never really contact other people that disagree with us. It's like you can't disagree with people anymore.
So if someone wants to read your books, Amazon the best place to get it?
I'm on Kindle. Yeah, Amazon Kindle. It's the series is called The Fall. Just type in Dave McIntyre The Fall, and you'll find all 3 of my books.
Cool. So 3 novels.
3 in a series is planned for 6. And book 4 is about 85% done. I just need to finish it and get that one out. But it's a fun series. It's like everything. It's like my answer to the zombie apocalypse is zombies for thinking people.
I love the concept. I'm actually going to check it out. I'm sure you don't know this unless you're a huge fan of Last Life Ever, which seems unlikely at this point since you never heard of us before. But one of the things that we did is we did this thing called the Kind Morning 40, and on the Kind Morning 40, we spent 40 days trying to do one random act of kindness every day, 40 minutes each of those 40 days, investing in yourself. And for investing in yourself, I picked writing fiction. So I've only recently begun writing fiction. And then the N and D are no distractions, or what Jillian and I did was no drinking. So we went 40 days without drinking. We just finished this a few weeks ago. So we're back to drinking now. So that's good. Like that's what I would have. I don't know about you, Dave. I don't know if you drink, but if I was 66 days in the wilderness, I would have probably wanted to take turn in one of my items of gear for a couple of fifths of Jack Daniels.
I tried. There was one time they came out. I just caught a bunch of crabs. So I had all these crabs in a net bag, and they pulled the boat in. I forget. They had to fix my infrared illuminator on my camera had died. So they came in, and one of the cameramen had gone off, and he was messing with my camera. So I started talking to guys in the boat. I'm like, hey, I'll trade you crabs for beer. They're like, no, we can't. That's all I was thinking, to go.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's okay to go a little while without drinking, but it's nice to have a drink once in a while, I think. So, but anyway, so I think the writing thing is really great. And then just to finish up, by the way, we are going to be doing another Kind Morning 40. So if people are listening to this, stay tuned in the group and you'll be able to see when that's starting. And Dave, you're welcome to join us for that if you want to. It's sort of a lifestyle thing to figure out a way to live the best version of your life. But anyway, so the writing thing is really hard. Like, how did you get started with that? And I know we're way over. So
I'm very comfortable living inside my own head. I have a huge imagination, and when I'm writing fiction, I am worthless. I am just so absorbed by it. I'm kind of living there. I remember one time I was doing a wilderness survival course in Brazil while I was writing my first story. And of course, I'm out there with Brazilians, so I'm only speaking Portuguese all day long. And I went back to my shelter. I'm laying in my hammock, working through dialogue for the story. And about a half hour into it, I realized I'm doing it in Portuguese. I'm working out dialogue between Nick and Holly in Portuguese. I'm like, I'm writing this book in English. It's like, wow, I just didn't even realize that I hadn't stopped thinking in Portuguese, so I get totally absorbed by it. I'm there. I remember my daughter, she says, it's Christmas. She says, Dad, I hate your story. I'm like, why? He says, because I think Nick and Holly and the others should be here for Christmas. It's like, I know all these characters so well. So that's,
it does feel really weird.
Oh my God, that's funny.
It feels weird though when you're writing. So I'm working on. I wrote a few short stories, but I'm working on a novel too, and I've been working on it, dabbling on it. I don't want to even admit how long I've had it on my laptop. It's been like a decade or something, and it's sort of done. But my characters feel very real to me, and I just feel like I feel like I owe it to them to finish. Does that make sense?
You don't want to leave them hanging.
Yeah, like it would be unfair to these imaginary people, like if I didn't let them finish their stories. So,
I like people. I'm kind of like I tell people, I write fiction. Anything you say can and will be used, in a fictional scene at some point. That there's no your characters can't be based on actual people, but every character is based upon a conglomeration of people that you've met, their idiosyncrasies and mannerisms and things, and you're kind of chunking and forming and building this person out of people that you've met, and that's what makes them real. And I kind of flesh them out like if you're going to describe a scene, you don't want to just describe what the person sees, but also what they're feeling and what they smell and what they're hearing, and to engage all those senses. And people are that way too. They've got their intellectual component, they got their education, their background, their experiences, their faith, and all these different things that go into making a well-rounded character. And if you know your characters well enough, you can pretty much let them run the show. Like, I don't know exactly what Nick and Holly are going to do. I'll put them in a situation, and all of a sudden these two characters are, thrashing it out and figuring out what they're going to do and coming at it from the different perspectives. And sometimes I'm like, oh, wow. Oh, that's awesome. She would definitely do that. And it's something that's not coming from me because I would handle things a certain way. And
so we should have had this is like part 2 of the show. Like we should have had like a Dave the novelist as a second one, because we really do need to have this conversation because it's amazing. So maybe we'll have you back to talk just about writing sometime if you want to do that. That'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, I'll go on forever about.
Well, I mean, I don't want to kick you off. Like we can just do it now, but I think Jillian's getting bored. She's like falling asleep behind us or something. No, she's muted, so she's talking and we can't hear her. I was just.
Oh, sorry. I was like, no, I found that pretty exciting. Like the fact that you just kind of take yourself out of the equation and what you want the characters to do, but rather what the characters would do because that's who they are. That's really
there's
cool.
Certain guiding principles. Like I understand the scenario very well and what the world would look like in that case, and I let them do any option. Like in The Walking Dead. Okay, I forget what episode or what season, but they're running around in this totally broken down Winnebago, and the whole thing goes to crap because a pipe or something or a hose goes. And right down the road from me, there is a dealership of RVs. They've got these tour bus size RVs just parked, dozens of them parked in the lot. Yeah, you know what I mean? There's no way my characters would drive past something like that without driving away in a brand new RV. That's exactly how they're going to live.
There's actually a legitimate criticism of a lot of these zombie movies and TV shows. They almost make it too hard, right? It's kind of like when you're on alone and you find something on the beach, you're not going to disregard it, right? Like you're going to use whatever's there. And we see this with people they find a plastic jug and all of a sudden they have a canteen or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same concept. And I, by the way, I agree with you. So when I'm writing, I have a really good idea of my character, and I have a pretty good idea of the general idea of where they're at, and then I just kind of wait and see. In fact, when I was finishing up the first draft of my novel, I was like surprised at how it ended. I don't know if you experienced that at the end of any of your stories.
I kind of envision the end point where I want to get to in a particular story, and I write towards that point. But the path I take to get there, I know where I want to wind up, but I don't control how the characters can act and react in every little thing.
Yeah, it's such a great because for me, I didn't even have that. Like honestly, and I think this is a very risky way to write, which is why I have significant revisions, because there's some wandering parts that I need to clean up and get rid of because I didn't have a clear idea of where I was going at first. And then it developed itself. And so that means I have a lot of stuff I have to get rid of. Right. But it's a really interesting process. Writing. So Jillian, how's your novel coming?
Oh, I've always envisioned. So when my kids were little, I used to write stories with them, and then we tried to get those stories on paper and we struggled. So we had this super elaborate story actually, that I would tell a new part of it to them every night. And the characters in the story would go to a new place in the world. They were like they were almost in like an Amazing Race type of situation. And one character was one of my sons and the other character was my other son, but they had, different names, but they knew who was who. And they would encounter like animals along the way and learn lessons, and they would just they were basically getting around the world. And it was a pretty cute story, and there were some funny things in there that were like personal to me and my kids. But then when it came down to writing it down, we only got like 5 pages done.
Well, the writing part is the hardest part, right? I mean,
yeah. So, I mean, we would have to do that. We might have to come back and visit it because it was really fun, and it was super fun to do with them. And I did it, we just started off as a joke, and then it turned into like this whole thing about them learning about places around the world. And then we just kind of stopped doing it. So.
Well, you're a creative person. I mean, I've seen your lunchbox napkins, which I saw you started back up, which is awesome. By the way, I'm totally just cutting this into 2 interviews. I hope you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be perfect because we're going to be right on that. But all right. So you wrote 3 novels now, Dave, and you have 3 more planned.
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to write beyond this series at some point, or are you just going to finish the series and that's going to be like your magnum opus or whatever?
Well, finishing the series is one thing, but the way I've got the story set up, it would be very easy to write standalone books in the same scenario of different places, different people. And I've thought about that, and I've also got a sequel series that would take place about 25 years after this.
So you've got a big project ahead of you.
Yeah, that's part of my problem is I build this world inside my head, and then I can pretty much go anywhere I want with it. But it's almost too broad. I have to narrow the focus down.
That's like the J.R.R. Tolkien problem. Like he just could have written forever in that world.
Yeah, I could definitely just keep going in the same scenario. But I always thought it would be interesting to revisit these characters when they're later in life. Like Nick is 24 at the beginning of the book. The beginning of the story, and to come back when he's in his early 50s, and his kids are now exploring the world as it is at that point. The other thing I hate about post-apocalyptic books is it's almost like the only people that survive are bikers and punk rockers. You know what I mean? You have to have bad hair. You have the mohawk. Those people don't really survive. There's no special skill in those folks. The people that survive are going to be raising sheep and planting corn, after a thing like that.
Listen, I'll be first to admit that. Like a lot of my friends are pretty big into like gun ownership and stuff. And I always say like, I don't need any of this stuff because if it gets bad enough that I actually need to like defend myself, I'm not going to live very long anyway.
No, that's the thing. You want as a lone individual. But
I mean, it's not. Yeah, exactly.
That would be a component in a society, like a small town that is fending for itself. It would have to deal with its own law enforcement and criminality problems and people raiding you from the outside. So that is a component. It certainly isn't in my story that they are.
And you do see that theme in a lot of post-apocalyptic stuff. I mean, it certainly appeared in The Walking Dead, where sort of bands and societies would evolve. And I think that's pretty common. But yeah, I mean, I know this about myself. Like I need at my house in the event of some kind of apocalyptic event, enough like rice and beans to make it through a week. And after that, if it hasn't figured itself out, I'm on the way out. Like that's kind of
living off your body reserves, kind of like I was on the
I've got like 30 days apparently. That's what you said, right? Like kind of that I'm out days. Anyway. I don't have anywhere to flee to, so I'm not going to be fishing. Like my neighbors will probably get all the good fish or something. So,
well, it's pretty much a fantasy that people have about wilderness survival. Is this idea of the rugged individual going off into the wilderness and living off the land and all that. And it's a lot harder than you think. I'll just let you know straight up. Even with modern, if you had a 22 or a rifle and modern gear, it's a hard lifestyle. You don't want to be doing it that way.
No, I don't think I would. I actually, one thing that came to me from Alone in general, and really now talking about your book too, is I think it'd be really hard. Like the mountain men, right? Like the 49ers and the miners and stuff that made these trips out into the wilderness, like the fur trappers and stuff. Like those had to be some hardcore individuals.
Yeah.
To go out and come back with a bunch of beaver pelts or something.
They suffered a lot.
Yeah, that would be
that's one of the things. Every native tribe that I've ever had any contact with or knowledge of regards being lost in the wilderness as a hardship. I mean, even the Quatsino people up on the First Nations, they used being alone in that environment as a rite of passage for their young men, that they would go out and spend 30 days, a month and a half living on their own away from the tribe, and that was considered a rite of passage for them. And that's basically what we were all doing up there in their environment, and they respected us a great deal for doing that, because they know how hard it is. People would say, "Oh, the tribes up there, they had so much food that they would take the winter off." Yeah, they did, but they also worked together as a tribe, and everything that they knew from birth until adulthood was an education in how to survive in that environment. And here we are coming in as complete noobs, knowing nothing about that and going into that kind of an ordeal. So they're very highly to me, that was the most validation. Is one of the elders up there when I went back. He comes up to me, he says, "You, sir, are a badass." And nice. I was like, "Thank you."
Yeah. No, what do you say to that?
Wait a minute. Hold on. You get to ask all the questions.
Go ahead.
Hold on. So
it's my hometown boy, Jill.
I know. I understand. Like, it's all the things that you've always wanted to talk about. So I want to step back a little bit, but I do have some questions about writing this science fiction, or just, fiction in general. And you had made this point about, letting the characters do what the characters are going to do. But do you plan out a story arc or a plot twist or a story itself, or do you just let the characters themselves direct the story?
It's a little bit of both. I know the main conflict that they have to resolve, the main thing that they're trying to fix, and then I'm putting them into a situation where they have to struggle to survive. They have to fight to stay alive, but they don't want to kill. I don't want to give away the main twist in the story, but it's not an option just to walk around shooting these people that are attacking you, okay, for very, very solid reasons. So they avoid it at all costs. And so I know that the parameters, the conflict they're trying to resolve, and the things the goals they have, but then setting them free to take the path of least resistance within that environment. Like I remember, The Walking Dead, where they approached the Center for Disease Control, and there was like a battle that was there, and there's like AR-15 or M16s and M4s laying all over the ground, and no one's picking them up. I'm like, hello, you should be gearing up. I mean, every last one of them will be doing that as they walk through that battle scene, but they don't, because that would somehow give them too much of an edge. It's like that's exactly what they would do. So there are things like that in the story where the characters are definitely taking the lead, and other things where I'm kind of pushing them along in the direction I need the story to go. So it's, like I said, I get absorbed in it. I get totally in my head with this story and run through scenarios, and I'm never so tied to what I've written that I won't scrap it. I remember scrapping entire chapters of the story where you write it and you realize you're painting yourself into a corner. It's like, nope, back up, start over again. The magic's in the editing. Nobody writes a rough draft that makes any sense. You read
editing is so hard.
Editing is so fun.
I mean, my first draft was editing. I don't love it. That's the problem. I'm going to learn. You know what? You're so right, Dave. You're 100% right. I'm a mindset guy. You don't know this about me, but I'm all about mindsets. It's my biggest thing. So starting right now, I love editing. It's my favorite thing. I'm going to repeat it until it's true. Jillian, you're my accountability partner on that.
Okay. What are we doing?
You weren't listening?
No, I'm saying what is our mantra?
Our mantra is Jeff loves editing. I love editing.
Oh, okay.
I love editing. I'm going to repeat it until I'm true. I love editing.
Have you ever been in a conversation with a spoken word? You speak it, it disappears. It's done. And you go back and you're rehashing the conversation, argument, whatever it was. Man, why didn't I say this or that or that?
Right.
Oh wow, when you write it down.
That's what editing is. Oh my gosh.
Say,
you're so right. I love editing. I have to tell you, it's my favorite thing.
I can do this. Oh my goodness, you can make the perfect converation. You can make that impact.
That's actually a solid argument.
It's not going to hit you the first time you write it. And you're mulling it over. Like when I write, I'll write like maybe 3 hours, and that's as much juice as I have for creativity.
Oh yeah, it's hard to do more than that.
I'll come back and I'll edit the last 5 to 10 pages when I start writing, and then I'll start creating more. And the idea is, oh no, she wouldn't say this. There's so much more attitude. Holly has this attitude.
So you edit it as you go?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So that might have been a mistake I made. I just wrote it. I didn't even look back at it until it was done. And now it's like overwhelming. Like I look at my book and I'm like, that's why I started writing. That's why I chose to work on writing fiction, because I have this completed draft, which I think is okay, but it has some issues. And I know that because I've reread it since. And I've gotten some constructive criticism, but I look at it and I'm like, it's overwhelming to like tear that whole thing apart. But I think writing and editing as you go is great. That's really smart.
Yeah, I'm not editing to the final product.
Yeah, you're not putting commas in place and stuff.
You're looking at what you wrote. And I know it's like sometimes I'll have like a 10-page day where I'm just like on fire. I'm just like flying. And other days it's like 2-3 pages and I'm just trudging through it. And then when I go back and look at it, I can't tell you which of the days I was on fire and which days I wasn't. They all look the same, but just sometimes it's clicking for you. And the idea, it's like I had quality time mulling it over in my head. I know where I want to go. And the words are just flying on the page. And then I go back and I look at it again and I reshape those words and those scenes. I look at it with a fresh set of eyes. It's like what I'm trying to do with my words is paint a picture in your head so that everybody that reads is going to get the same basic picture. Yeah, they're not coming up with a different scenario. They're going to see it. And to be able to communicate that and put in other sensations and other descriptors to make people understand that character, that scene, that dialogue, sharpen the words, sharpen the prose. I love that process. And then I'll give it to my editor, who will then look over it and work out punctuation and things that aren't clear, things like that. But I don't worry so much about that when I'm writing. I'm more focused on content and getting good quality story down. And then I'll go back and clean it up. And I can't just pick up where I left off. I have to pick up, for continuity's sake, I'll pick up, a couple pages back and I'll just re-edit that and then flow from there. The next day, I'm always going back over those pages that I wrote the day before.
So you never start from where you left off. You go backwards and then start again.
Yeah, I'll read up. I'll edit up to the point where I have blank page. Then the ideas are usually there by that point. I know where I want to take the scene. I know where I want to take the plot and the dialogue, and I'll sharpen all that up. It looks good, and now it can keep going. And every once in a while, I'll go back to the beginning of the chapter and just completely revamp it. And there's other times, like before, I wrote all 3 of the stories before I published the first one, and there were ideas that I had. I thought, oh wow, that's a cool idea. I'm going to incorporate this into the story. So I had to go back to square one, page 1, and reintroduce a certain idea. One of the things that, if you've had this virus, one of the marks is there's a depigmentation which happens in your iris. There's like a yellow starburst, and Nick has green eyes and Holly is actually black, so she has dark eyes, but she's got this starburst. And I went back and I wrote that physical mark into the story, and it's a really cool component of the story. So if you've had this virus, you look at somebody, you can tell they're a carrier of this disease because it never actually goes away. You're still a carrier, and you could kill somebody just by breathing on them. And people that have that mark, it's like the mark of Cain, you know what I mean? They've got this physical description, the descriptor, this differentiator that sets them aside as the people who have been affected by this thing and survived it.
And so you went back and wove that through the whole thing.
All the way through the story.
Yeah. Wow. That's that is a project in and of itself when you're 3 books into a series.
Oh, it was a cool project. It was such a great idea. I mean, I love the idea. So now it's like I'm fired up. Where will this fit? Where are the natural points? That this component is going to fit into the story, and it creates a lot of tension and things. And yeah, there's definitely it was the right thing to do is to go back and work that in.
Oh, that's fantastic.
This is very inspiring to me. It makes me want to take out my book that I wrote.
Well, you can do that for your next invest in yourself.
No,
on Morning 40, you could. I mean, how much singing?
No, I gotta finish my other invest in myself, which I never really did a good job.
Oh, so you're gonna finish up your Christina Aguilera singing lessons?
I'm gonna finish up just working on music in general.
You promised back in March that you were gonna do.
I'm gonna do that. I'll do that. I'll do the masterclass. I'll finish the Christina Aguilera masterclass.
Dave, thank you so much. This is the end of our interview. I promise. We said a half hour, now we're an hour. We're breaking it into 2 because it's so amazing. Such great content. Any parting words for our viewers and listeners?
Hang in there.
I love it.
don't lose sight of yourself. People ask me all the time, what can we do to prepare for something like this with COVID and all that, and the social isolation. And I remember on the island when I was starving to death, I had no emotional needs whatsoever. So if you're feeling the lack of contact with people and that sort of thing, then be grateful, because your other needs are being met. You have food, you have a roof over your head, you have all the things that allow you to have emotional needs. They're already settled. Okay,
it's like he watches you all the time, Jillian. It's really like that. Jillian's constantly talking about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like all the time. It's like her thing, right?
That is my thing.
Needs, your other needs are being met. Believe me, because
that's so. You're the takeaway from today is, if you're starving, nothing else matters, and so you should be happy if you have problems.
Listen,
aren't starving. That's amazing.
I just want to say what this really says is that Jillian's always right, Jeff?
Yeah, sure. If you say so.
Okay, no. Listen, what it
you
really
should have left with
means,
that. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying.
This is a little thing we do.
Yeah. All right. But I do want to say that is awesome, because I am on a constant quest to get people in general up the pyramid. Like, to me, my goal in life is to bring everybody up, including myself. I'm not at the top of the pyramid, right? Like, I would be an idiot to think that I was, but I want to bring my children to the top of the pyramid. I want to push them as far up that pyramid as I can, so that they can get themselves the rest of the way. And that's what I want for everybody.
Right. It's a fundamental tenet of Last Life Ever is helping people get as close to self-actualization as possible. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, that's the whole goal. And that's sort of the top of the pyramid. And we're all striving to live the best version of our lives possible. And Jillian, do you want to take us out?
I do, but stick around, because Jeff and I will be chit-chatting after the show about random stuff, telling you our jokes, all that other good stuff. But before that, I want to remind all of you to live the best version of your last life ever. Go!
Wow, so that was amazing. That's the second time we've had Dave on the show, and this time we talked to him about writing. And I think, for me, Jillian, I just loved talking to him, and you didn't even get a word in, so I'll let you talk now.
Well, I'll tell you what I loved. I was actually really inspired, because I've never really thought about writing a fiction novel before of any sort. I mean, I fantasize about it, I think, like a lot of us do, but never seriously fantasized about it, because I never really thought of, perhaps I had a bit of a limited belief when it came to writing a novel. But he made it sound like, look, you just you come up with a character development, and then you take that character and you let that character write the story. And I thought that was really just quite
I mean, his strategy was like, I have a general idea of where the story's going, and I really understand my world that I'm creating as a world building strategy, and I really understand my characters. And I think maybe every author does it a little bit different, but it's important for an author to have a deep understanding of at least some elements of it. And I know for me, that understanding my own characters is really important. Mm-hmm, and it is really fun for me, just not really knowing what they're going to say and what they're going to do is cool. I suspect he's a much better writer than me, just from talking to him. He seems much more imaginative and entertaining. And I mean, you've read a little bit of my fiction, so I'm okay, but not great.
Oh, I think you are great. I think there's a lot of
potential
there.
Yeah, I have potential to write good stories, but like I said in the interview, I hate editing, and it turns out if you don't edit, you don't write a good story. And but when I say I hate editing, you're supposed to yell at me.
Oh, I'm supposed to tell you that. No, you don't hate editing, because this is where the real magic happens.
No, you're supposed to say, you love editing. It's your favorite thing. Or what was it that I said in the interview? I don't even remember. It was yesterday. I can't remember that long ago.
But it was, I will say that it made me review editing totally different as well, because what he talked about was if you have an argument with somebody and you wish you said something differently, and editing is your opportunity to say that something differently. So I don't know.
And I also thought it was really interesting how he cared deeply about his characters. Like he felt like he owed it to them to finish their story. I thought that was really cool. And then like the idea that he had all these spin-off ideas and stuff. And I totally get that, because my draft novel, I have like I have like a trilogy in my head. Like I don't know exactly what's going to happen. And I want to write it because I want to find out what's going to happen. I know that sounds weird, but like I know like generally like who the main character of the second book is, and generally like the story arc, but only very general stuff. And until I actually start writing it, I won't know exactly what happens. And it's really fascinating to go through that process. You know, I only realized how fun it was when I started doing it, if that makes sense. So, you know, for Kind Morning 40, I decided to do some writing, and I started writing short fiction, which I don't really like as much as writing a novel. I think writing a novel is actually a lot more fun because you get more depth. Even the story I shared with you first about Ben and the birthday cake, it's a piece of my novel, really. It's not my novel. But the characters, Ben and Maggie, are the two main, are at least two relatively main characters in the novel.
Yeah.
So then I shared with you some other stuff, you know, that was just silly and fun stuff that really was based on random stuff. Like I wrote this story. I don't know if did you read the one about the Proceed with Caution? Did you read that one? The one that's like, I sent it to you. I don't know if you read it. We didn't talk about it, but there's a story. It's about these two American kids growing up in the heartland. Their names are Jack and Diane. And I don't know if that one is. And it's like a mashup of the song Jack and Diane, right, and Jack and the Beanstalk. Like I took the song and the fairy tale and put them together into a story.
That's fantastic.
And it was just really fun. I mean, it's probably terrible, but it was really fun. So far, no one's published it, but Jillian will now read it. And by the way, if anyone's watching this and it has been published, I'll be sure to share it with the group. So,
yeah, please do. And I do like reading your writing, Jeff. So please keep writing, keep sending it to me, even if I don't read it right away. It doesn't mean I don't want to. It just means
you've read more of my writing than just about anyone.
Oh, well, that's good.
Because you've read my forthcoming book as well.
Yes.
It's something we haven't really talked about, but we might as well mention it now, right? So
that's not fiction.
That's not fiction. That's true. I've written other nonfiction. I mean, we've shared the article in the group a few times, and I'll try to share it again soon about the luxury tax. That's the only paid thing I've ever written of nonfiction, which I'm really proud of because I love the fact that I'm a paid author, even if I only made $54.23. That's an exact amount, by the way, $54.23. I'll never forget it, though, because when I got that deposit into my PayPal account, I was like, woohoo, I'm a paid author now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And, and of course, you've read my Writing for Coronavirus Collective, which if people haven't bought, they should buy, of course. It's on Amazon, and the money goes to charity. So I did not get paid for that, but that's okay.
No, that we definitely didn't get paid for. Yeah.
Yes. But that's okay because, we're raising money for charity, and that's why we did it. I think it helps people. But the other book that I was alluding to is sort of what would we call it? It's sort of genre bending in a way. It's I think it's an autobiography / self-help book. Does that seem about right?
That is exactly right. That's exactly what it is. It's an autobiography / self-help book. And you kind of learn, but I think there's a lot of autobiography. I think you're in good company because I think
it's not the
Brendan Bouchard and Miracle Morning. Miracle Morning's really kind of.
There's a lot of autobiographical material. Mine, I think, tends more towards my life story than a lot of self-help books. Mm-hmm. But it's more self-help than a lot of autobiography. So it's kind of in between the two genres, which is why I don't really know where to classify it. But, maybe that's a mistake, but that's how I wrote it. And I'm very happy with how it's turning out. And I am excited to eventually release it so that we can share it with the people in Last Life Ever.
I would love that to happen.
By the way, if you are sticking around this far into the show, way past the interview, right, and listening to Jillian and I talk about this stuff, and you think that you are a very talented editor, please reach out to me and we'll share it with you, and you can help us get the book ready for publication.
Oh, I'd be so grateful if somebody came in, because I'm not a great editor either, but I do, I'm not a great editor. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Last Life
Jillian,
Ever.
you got to tell your joke.
Oh, I forgot my joke. Oh my God.
You got to tell your joke. I've got a great joke, by the way. Can I tell it first?
You should tell it first.
No, you should not let me tell it first. I'll steal your joke.
You're going to steal my joke. I just was going to say, wait a minute. I know it's coming. You're about to steal my joke.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll tell you. Okay. I'll tell you a different joke. How about this?
Okay.
Why did Shakespeare write with ink?
I don't know why.
Because he couldn't decide which pencil to use, to be or not to be.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. I'm going to move on. Why?
You can't even tell your joke because mine was so funny. It's thrown you off your game.
Oh my God. My joke. I just remember the punchline. What do you call a writer who has bad sentence structure?
I don't know what.
A rebel without a clause.
I actually did know, by the way, just to be clear.
All right. I'm wrapping this up.
All right. Listen, this is The Last Life Ever. My name is Jeffrey Holst. This over on is it my right or left? I don't know. Is it mirrored?
I think it's left.
On my left, right, is Jillian Sidoti, and she's amazing. She's over there. Right over there. Yes. Jillian Sidoti. And she's going to remind us why we do what we do.
We want you all to live the best version of your last life
ever.
Ever.